I went to a charger, there was another car plugged in, it wasn't charging. I unplugged them, plugged in, went off, came back, and there was a very unhappy man who wanted to punch me, I think. Did I do a bad thing? This happened yesterday. I was in town. I had a low charge in my Leaf, and I thought, well, okay, I'll go to the rapid charger, the one rapid charger in Canterbury, the one public rapid charger in Canterbury is the one I went to. And I'm going to rant a little bit about that later. But so I got to this charger, and well, I'll tell you what, I'll explain it from yesterday. Well, I've just had a really weird experience. I'm at a Genie Point charger at Morrison's. There's the charger. When I got here, I could see that there was another Leaf using it. So I pulled in and I checked the machine. There was no whirring sound. It's not completely obvious on these machines, really, if it's charging or not, but there was no whirring sounds. And I looked on the front of the Leaf. There were no flashing lights. So I unplugged the person and then I plugged in myself because it was pretty clear that it wasn't charging. And also in the Genie Point app, it said charge now. And if it says charge now, that means that the charger should be free. It should be available, I should say. So yes, when I unplugged this Leaf and plugged in myself, and I just went into the shop and I came back and there was a guy pacing around and he did not look very happy at all. He was very disgruntled, and I said, was that your Leaf? You'd finished charging, right? And he said, no. But not cool, mate, not cool, mate, piss off. I said, I'm sorry, but I could. He said, not cool, don't talk. I said, can I just explain? You can't unplug it if it's charging. It wasn't charging. Not cool. And he didn't want to know. And he looked like he was going to punch me at one point. And then he drove off. But I thought that was really odd. So it's funny with my previous video about like etiquette. It's strange that I feel like the roles have been reversed and I've upset someone else. I mean, if he was with the car when I plugged in, and obviously I would have said, you know, are you still charging? You know, I would have asked, albeit in a very meek, polite manner, but still I would have asked. But in this case, it really wasn't charging because you just can't unplug a car when it's charging on a rapid charger for safety reasons, but for anything else. So did I do the right thing? Obviously, if there's a charger, and again, I've got to say, this is the only rapid charger for public use in Canterbury, right? So if there's a charger and it's not being used, even if it's occupied and plugged in, surely it's okay to unplug the other car, right? And plug in yourself? What do you think? Let me know. But yeah, for now, I feel a little bit weirded out by all that. I normally get through life without having altercations with anyone or any arguments, but in this case, I'm sure I was right. Anyway, you live and you learn, don't you? So you'll see I'm wearing the same jumper for continuity. So I put that on Twitter yesterday and I got loads of responses actually, and it was fairly even, probably, about people saying, yes, you can do that, no, you really shouldn't. Probably more people said yes, actually. But there were a few vocal people that said, no, you just don't touch someone else's car. So I didn't explain very much in that video, but just to go back a little bit. So what happened is I drove past, I saw the charger and I saw there was a car there, saw the Leaf was there. So I thought, fine, okay, I'll drive past. I went somewhere else, parked up for about 10 minutes and then drove back. I didn't see whether they were charging, to be honest. When I drove past, I just saw them plugged in. So when I got to them and I saw that, well, the charger wasn't whirring, you know, that it was clearly not charging. If you want to see if a car is charging or not, I mean, obviously the charger is the first clue, and the charger, it wasn't whirring, it wasn't doing all the charging, normal charging stuff. On a Leaf, the lights flash at the front, and the CHAdeMO connector has a little red light on it. That tells you if it's charging or not, and in this case, it just clearly wasn't charging. It wasn't charging. It was 5 minutes to 4. At 4 o'clock, all the shops close. So I thought, well, okay, well, I'm going to be quick anyway. So in that time that I ran into the shop and then ran back, the guy had pressed emergency stop on my charge, so I could see that I was charging for 6 minutes. So, and then of course it all kind of kicked off. Now the issue here is, at that point when I unplugged him, I just assumed, really, and there's a lesson here, don't assume, but I just assumed that his charge had finished. I assumed, well, okay, he's probably been here for a while and his charge is finished and he hasn't come back to his car yet. And it's fine. There are 2 parking spaces next to the charger, so it's no big deal. So that's what I thought. But of course, when I was driving back from this, and all this was going through my mind and all that, because I'm not a big fan of confrontation anyway. So all this was going through my mind, and I was thinking, wait a minute, what if he didn't know that the charge had stopped? What if the charger had failed? Because that's not uncommon. What if he was just coming out to the charger, and he assumed that I had done the emergency stop. So all of these thoughts were going through my head, and it was repeated on Twitter. So the Twitter thread is fantastic if you want to see what people have commented, because there are loads of really good points on there. On top of all this, of course, the guy could have been just having a really bad day, and he thought the car had charged, and then he comes to it, and some idiot has taken the lead out and plugged in. So I hate the idea that he obviously thinks that I did something bad, and I don't think I did, but looking back, I can see, if you look at something from multiple perspectives, you can see really that it's easy to understand why he was so angry, I think. Although he didn't engage in any conversation, he just would not listen to me. So that's frustrating. But maybe he'd had a bad day. Maybe his wife had just left him. Who knows? So the charger could have failed. He could have thought that I had disconnected him. He was in an old Leaf. It's a first generation Leaf, which I think must have an app, but I don't remember whether the app tells you if it finishes charging. So it could have happened that he got the notification, come out to the car, and saw me there, assuming that I had stopped it somehow. He may be new to EVs, so he might not realise that you really can't unplug someone from a rapid charger if it's still charging. Unless you press a stop. I suppose if you press an emergency stop, then you can. But so he must have thought that. Yes, he may have gone inside to get a signal if he didn't have a signal there. Although the mobile signal was very good. And yes, he just didn't engage in any conversation. So maybe he's antisocial, or maybe he's just having a bad day. Whatever. So I've learnt some lessons from this. And firstly, it's particularly ironic. The irony is not lost to me that we had just done an etiquette video, my wife and I. And on Twitter, I've tweeted a couple of times about etiquette, saying, "Oh, this is terrible. This is whatever." So I'm not some self-appointed arbiter of charging etiquette or anything. It's a learning process. Everything with anything in life is a learning process. EVs especially. I'm still learning. I've been driving them for years, but I'm still learning. And I probably won't do the same thing again. So what I would say is, and this is based on a lot of the replies really on Twitter, if you're desperate for a charge, then perhaps unplug, but then hang around and wait for the person to get back. Whether you would really want to do that or not, I don't know, because then you could get into a conversation with them and they might be angry and you might just not want to talk to that person particularly, but still, maybe that's the decent thing to do. Because it was so close to the ending time for the shops, I kind of thought, well, it's just going to be a few minutes. It wouldn't be an issue, but clearly it was. Some people have said just don't risk it, because, what if you break their car, or what if they say that you've broken their car and you wouldn't have a leg to stand on? So there is that. Although really, the chances of breaking an EV by taking the plug out it's minute, isn't it? How could that ever happen? But it's a good point, Get video evidence, but in this case I did get evidence that his car was not charging, but he didn't want to see it anyway, so whatever. And never assume, of course. I assumed, and perhaps never assume. But if I was really desperate for a charge, and I wasn't, and that's the other thing, I wasn't desperate, so I could have just left it. I could have gone to my little taxi-only charger that I know about around the corner, but I didn't, because I just thought that he'd finished with his charge. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. And to be honest, let me say that I would want anyone to do the same thing. If I was charging and the charge stopped and someone else needed a charger, I don't want to block a charger, especially it's the only one in Canterbury, right? I would want someone to unplug me. I think that's just decent. And what I did do is I unplugged and I closed his charging flap, because I thought, well, that's a nice thing to do. But then other people have said, you just don't touch someone's car. Don't touch it. If you touch the the plug, fine, but don't touch the car. So, okay. But the real issue here is not enough chargers, at least in Canterbury where I live. Depends where you are, because there are places in the country, quite a few places in the country now actually, that have loads and loads of chargers, and this isn't an issue. Canterbury Council, they need to get their act together. There's no excuse in 2022 that we have one public rapid charger in the whole of Canterbury. So there we go. I would love to know what you think. Obviously, this has already been discussed at length on Twitter, but I would also love to know what you think. My YouTube audience tends to be a little bit more international, so it would be good to know your thoughts from wherever you are in the world. I would just, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Etiquette, it's always evolving. This issue, again, this issue probably won't be a problem, will it, in a few years' time when we have enough chargers? And also, I'll just say that, I'm quite a friend. I was certainly not threatening. I mean, look at me. I'm certainly not threatening. So I do wish that the guy just engaged in some conversation, because I would have moved immediately. I would have got out of there as quick as anything and said, please, just have it. I'm sorry, my mistake. But he wasn't having it. So he was angry to begin with. And what I would say, again, and this goes back to the etiquette issue, where charging can be scary. Imagine that was in a car park, a badly lit car park or something. You would not want to do anything then, would you? You wouldn't want to get into an altercation then. This was in a busy car park with loads of people around. Perhaps things would be. Perhaps I would have had a black eye on this video had it been in a dark car park. But there we go. Okay, well that's the end of this video anyway. I'd love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye for now. Oh, subscribe, bell icon. You know the score.